Close your eyes for a moment and imagine 1st century BC Rome. There is a struggle for power in the streets. The Senate is divided. The elites are competing for their own interests. The system called the Republic is still standing, but its foundations are cracking. And right in the middle of this chaos rises a name that will change the direction of history: Julius Caesar. He was not only a soldier, he was not only a politician, he was a strategist, a visionary, and most importantly, a man who read the times correctly. Caesar's rise began with military success. The Gallic Wars carried his name beyond Rome. The wars he fought in what we now call France were not merely acts of conquest. This campaign secured Rome's northern borders and granted him immense military power. Thanks to his victories in Gaul, he gained the loyalty of his army. He became a hero in the eyes of the public. He obtained a powerful advantage over the Senate. But the real issue was not winning wars. The real issue was maintaining power. And this is where history began to change. In the Roman Republic, power was shared between the Senate and the aristocracy. However, Caesar saw the gaps within this structure. The more his rivals tried to stop him, the stronger he became. When the Senate ordered him to return, he had to make a decision. Would he abandon his army and become an ordinary politician, or would he become the leader who shaped history? And he made the famous move. By crossing the Rubicon River, he chose a path of no return. That decision marked the beginning of civil war. From that moment on, it was no longer just about one man's power. It was about the future of Rome. The phrase, "the die is cast," became the symbol of this era. The civil war was Caesar's greatest test. One by one, he eliminated his rivals. Thanks to his strategic intelligence, he quickly gained the upper hand. After his victories, when he returned to Rome, he was no longer just a general. He was the most powerful figure in the state. The Senate granted him extraordinary authority. He was declared dictator for life. At this point, the balance of the Republic was shaken. Caesar's power had gone far beyond the traditional structure. He implemented reforms: debt regulations, calendar reform, the Julian calendar, expansion of Roman citizenship, new urban planning projects. These reforms directly affected people's lives. Some saw him as a savior, others saw him as a threat to the Republic. Caesar's greatest strength was popular support, but it was also his greatest weakness: excessive power. Some members of the Senate feared that he would become a king. In Rome, the word king represented the opposite of freedom. Rome was a society that had overthrown monarchy centuries earlier. His increasing authority created suspicion. Even though he reportedly refused a crown when it was offered, symbols matter. Power is not only about action, it is about perception. And when perception changes, history accelerates. Caesar's leadership laid the foundation for Rome's transformation from a republic into an imperial structure. After his death, the following period evolved directly into an imperial system. But there is an important point. He did not officially establish the empire, yet he brought the system to a point where turning back became almost impossible. Power became centralized. Military authority was concentrated in one hand. The political structure was reshaped. Historians today ask, was Caesar a revolutionary or the accelerator of inevitable change? Caesar's story is not only about war and politics, it is also about leadership psychology. When does a leader become the representative of the people? When does he rise above the system? And when does power stop being service and become a tool of control? Caesar stood with the people through his reforms, yet he also maintained strong, centralized authority. This balance is extremely delicate, one that very few leaders in history have managed. During his time, Rome expanded, strengthened, became the center of the world. but internal tensions increased as well. And eventually, a historical moment arrived. Opponents in the Senate decided to stop his growing power. This led to events that would determine the fate of the Roman Republic. Caesar's death may have been the end of a leader, but it could also have been the end of a system. After him, Rome descended into civil wars, and eventually the imperial system was established. So the question is, did Caesar truly destroy the Republic? Or was the Republic already collapsing? Today, Caesar's name appears in strategy courses, leadership analyses, history books, discussions of power and politics. His story tells us power alone is not enough. The real issue is how power is used. Does a leader work for the people, or does history incorporate him into its own plan? Caesar's legacy is not only an empire, it is also a question mark. Now think again. If a leader rises with public support but changes the system, is that progress? Or is it the beginning of transformation? Should power be used for reform? Or is power, by its nature, inherently centralized? And most importantly, does a nation or civilization rise because of a strong leader, or does it endure because of strong institutions? History does not give us answers. It only tells events. The interpretation is left to us. So what do you think? Was Caesar the man who saved Rome, or the man who changed it irreversibly? Caesar's rise is not only a story of military success, it is also a story of human nature. What happens when power is gained? Does one seek more, or does one seek balance? The more powerful a leader becomes, the greater the fear around him grows. And fear is the fastest spreading emotion in politics. In Rome, some applauded his reforms. Others saw every step he took as a threat. Because throughout history, when power becomes centralized, two things appear simultaneously: stability and anxiety. Stability brings order. Anxiety accelerates change. During Caesar's time, Rome was no longer just a city-state. It controlled much of the Mediterranean. Armies extended beyond borders. The system had grown too large to operate under old rules. The question now was, could the Republic structure handle this scale? Caesar's reforms were like a system upgrade. Debt reforms, citizenship expansion, and calendar changes deeply affected daily life. For the people, these changes were tangible. Work became easier, time was organized, economic pressure decreased. But politics is not only about public satisfaction. Politics is also about power balance. History shows that leaders are judged not only by their actions, but also by symbols. The appearance of power is as important as power itself. Ceremonies, titles, and honors shape public perception. When perception changes, reality is reinterpreted. Caesar's increasing authority strengthened fears of one-man rule. Rome had historically rejected kingship. Therefore, concentration of power was culturally sensitive, and history is often shaped in the tension between ideals and reality. Think about this. If Caesar had not existed, would Rome have remained unchanged? Perhaps it would have changed anyway. Perhaps someone else would have taken the same role. Large systems create large crises. Large crises produce large transformations. Caesar was at the heart of this transformation. His leadership accelerated Rome's future. The imperial structure that replaced the Republic was not solely the work of one man. It was the result of long-standing political, military, and social pressures. But history often remembers transformation through a single name. When a leader is loved by the people, he gains power. As power grows, he influences the system. As he influences the system, he assumes more responsibility. But as responsibility increases, opposition also grows. This is a cycle. Caesar's story is one of the most striking examples of this cycle. He expanded Rome. He centralized governance. He created order through reform. But he also reshaped the republic's political structure in an irreversible way. This story does not belong only to the past. Power is redefined in every era. Leadership is debated in every period. Reforms always generate support and criticism. Caesar's life teaches us, great leaders leave great impacts, but every great impact brings debate. History is written between heroes and critics. Now let us think again. If a leader transforms a system, is that progress? Or is it the natural evolution of the system? When power is concentrated in one place, does order emerge? Or does risk increase? And most importantly, does a society reach its peak because of a strong leader, or remain lasting because of strong institutions? History does not give a definitive answer, but it gives us enough to think. Caesar changed Rome. That change placed him at the center of history. So the real question is, does a leader shape history by changing the system? Or does history create the leader when the right moment arrives?